The UK, France and Germany will resume nuclear talks with Iran this week after the European countries threatened to reimpose sanctions on Iran if discussions did not continue. It is the first time Iran's nuclear program will be discussed since the end of the 12-day war, which saw both Israel and the US strike the country's nuclear facilities. For more on this, I'm joined by global affairs journalist and adjunct professor at Georgetown University, Tara Kangarlou. Tara, good to have you with us today. Now, firstly, those three European nations, we spoke about, were threatening these sanctions if Iran didn't come to the table for these talks. What's your understanding of this? Did Iran give in to those threats, or was it always going to attend these talks in the first place?
Thank you for having me. Iran is in a very precarious position right now. Last week, for the first time, the foreign ministers of E3, you mentioned France, Germany, and the UK, spoke with Iran's foreign minister, Araghchi. That was on Thursday. And in a very threatening manner, Europeans essentially said, you have to come to the table, the negotiating table, and restrict your uranium enrichment and nuclear program, or else all sanctions, all UN sanctions will be reinstated. And by that, they are referring to the snapback mechanism that the Europeans for the last few weeks really have been threatening to reimpose. And what that means essentially is that all UN Security Council sanctions, everything prior to the 2015 JCPOA, aka nuclear deal, will be reimposed. And what does that mean for Iran? That means that Iran will go back to full economic isolation. Now, Iran and the Iranian government is essentially left with no choice but to come back to the negotiating table. And what we will see on Friday is perhaps the first step toward a conversation rather than a deal. And that's really how I see it.
Yes, so in this first step towards this conversation you're speaking of, what might be right at the top of the agenda?
Well, probably Iran's nuclear ambitions, where that is going, where they're heading. France, in that call last week on Thursday, said we want a verifiable and lasting deal with essentially no uranium enrichment. And for the Iranians, again, I've been covering this for over 10 years. I was in Iran in 2015 covering the nuclear talks. That is a red line. Iran wants some kind of an enrichment, but again, the details of that is yet to be seen. Is Iran in a position of negotiation? Not really. Do they have any leverage? Not much, right? What I want your viewers perhaps to note, which I think is important, is also this intelligence report that was reported last week by NBC News, which indicated that of the three sites that the U.S. bombed essentially on that sort of, the final days of the 12-day war, only Fordow has been completely destroyed. This is according to this latest intelligence report, where the other two, Natanz and Isfahan, can in some ways in a few months be back online. Now, is that going to be part of the conversation? Perhaps. But I think right now, both the United States and the Europeans want to see an end to Iran's nuclear ambitions, the uranium enrichment, and really be able to verify what's going on in Iran. That right now is very difficult because, as you know, Iran essentially reduced its relationship with IAEA, the UN nuclear watchdog, and is not giving them full access.
Yes, and do you think in this vein, and I don't expect the US to do so, but perhaps would the UK, France and Germany be thinking perhaps we give Iran a little bit of rope in terms of enriching uranium to a certain degree, not anywhere close to weapons grade?
I don't think Europeans would do anything without the United States blessing. And when you speak with folks in Iran, as I have been, they are actually saying that, Europe is doing US's bidding. They're, sort of on the front line of the discussions where, US is the final authority, as so many people in Iran say and no. And then you have the equation of Russia and China, which I think is very important to think about. So many people in Iran, and I've been speaking with folks from various sides, sources, are telling me that Russia has never had Iran's back. And why do I mention Russia? Because P5+1, these are the countries that came together to put together this 2015 nuclear deal, the permanent members of the UN Security Council, as well as Germany. And so Russia has shown that at the end of the day, they don't have Iran's interests at heart. And some are saying that they might be willing to give up Iran for Ukraine, because, again, they themselves are trying to engage with the U.S. in some sort of a deal and engagement. And that's, again, leaving Iran more isolated than ever before.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, because, we saw on the weekend that Vladimir Putin, he held a surprise meeting, or what's been described as a surprise meeting, with Ali Larijani. He's the top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, particularly on nuclear issues. So what's Russia playing at here?
It's a great point you mentioned. And by the way, Arakchi was in Russia a few weeks back, taking Iran's grievances that, you guys essentially left us alone during the 12-day war. And mind you, that Russia, again, a few weeks ago said, we are okay with no uranium enrichment when it comes to Iran's nuclear program. That essentially, upset the Iranians. Now, the meeting that you're referring to that happened on Sunday, yesterday, actually, Larijani was the chief negotiator back in 2005, 2006, under Ahmadinejad's presidency. And history is, I think, our best friend when we are trying to understand how things will move forward, especially in this case. During that time, in 2006, was when we first heard of these anti-Israel, these sort of Holocaust-denying rhetorics, these shameful messaging coming from Ahmadinejad's office, and him essentially going around and emboldening the Israel to be more wary than ever before. Larijani was the chief negotiator at the time, and that was the year when Russia actually didn't use its veto power. And that's when the UN sanctions were imposed on Iran, because the deal didn't go anywhere. So I think context and history is essential for us to understand where we are and where we will go. And now the fact that he's in Russia trying to talk to the Russian counterparts, I think signals a sense of desperation. He's perhaps someone that has worked with them over the years. He knows them well. And he's also close to the Supreme Leader Khamenei. So maybe they're trying to use their final push to convince Russia to not leave them alone this time, again, if it comes to that point. But Russia, again, historically has proven that it won't have Iran's back unless it is to their benefit.
Okay, Tara, Kangarlou, we do have to leave it there, but thank you very much for giving us your insights.
Thank you.